So we picked out this 1 acre slice of woods on Baldpate. Lots of dying ash trees, lots of deer browse, lots of discouraging invasive species. And we just put a call out there. Anybody interested in learning how to tend the woods? We started with a group of people who had different levels of experience with the forest in New Jersey, nobody with a major background in ecological restoration. And we asked ourselves, what can we do to help this place? And also to help ourselves make the right decisions about what can happen here. One of the things that was really cool to me about this project was that at first I think everybody was full of ideas about, we're going to control invasives, we're going to control the deer, we're going to do this and that. And those were the things that we ended up doing. But instead of just charging right in, we asked ourselves questions like, how can we do more good than harm? And what does this place really need? And what we discovered in that questioning process was we needed to really immerse ourselves in this landscape. We needed to figure out who lives here already. Are the native plants thriving? If we do work in here, is it just going to turn to weeds again, or is something else going to take its place? And we broke up into small teams where everybody could really immerse in something that they thought was interesting. So learning about which birds were singing on territory here in the spring, or doing floristic quality analysis, which is a way of figuring out what story the plants are telling you about the history of this landscape in 10 100-meter square plots. So we have got this great document now that is all about that initial baseline exploration we did, and then we started getting into work. We started putting up fences here that any homeowner could do in their backyard in response to similar conditions, and seeing what was coming up in them. And now we're seeing black cohosh and bloodroot thriving in them, and we're seeing hickories and hackberries and spicebush and all these structural elements of a healthy forest. And all we had to do was put little 4-foot tall welded wire fences around things. And now we're at the point where it's time for the forest to start speaking for itself. It's time for some of the work that we did to translate into work that other people could do, because the whole idea behind this was going to be a class, but not a class with chalkboards or handouts, but a class where we would all get together in the woods and learn by doing. And now this site is starting to respond, and it's so exciting to see what things are thriving based on the work, the well-considered work that this team of incredible volunteers has put in here. So here's some of the fences we built. This is just 4-foot tall welded wire fence from, your big box store, set on rebar, zip tied on. But it also makes these really nice micro exclosures from deer. And look at what's happening in this one. All this spicebush is really thriving. Pretty much all this tall green. And it's fall now, so you can't see the response of some of the herbaceous plants as much because they're going away, but there's still some bloodroot in here. And look at how big and look at how lobey that one bloodroot is down there. There's a couple more in here as well, counting maybe 5 leaves altogether. I don't really see any outside the fence. So this is one of the plants that if you come by in the spring, you will see some bloodroot flowering in here. But by the time you get to late October like we are now, it's all long ago being browsed up. So to see it's still green and thriving in here, that means that to me, in a couple years, this is going to be spicebush with a ground cover of bloodroot underneath, and it's going to be so glorious. Another cool thing that is kind of hard to see at this time of year, but I can see the vestiges of it. Maybe this looks like a twig from where you are. This is actually a big black cohosh flower. It's taller than I am. Unusually tall. I guess it's in a pretty good light gap here with all the ash above dying off. But look how well it did in here. I mean, this is all seed set up here. This meant that those white candle-like flowers were, 6-7 feet high. Black cohosh is another one of the species that when we did our initial inventory in here, we were finding it herbaceously, so we were finding the leaves in the woods, but we weren't really finding it getting to flowering height successfully. It was just being browsed too much. And it's so encouraging to see it there. And there's actually a couple more stems in here. There's some stems right in front of me over here. And that's all black cohosh flowered because people came out here, looked around, saw, oh, there's some cool stuff in here, and put up these easy to move around, not expensive, simple fences. It's just some rebar driven into the ground, some black zip ties, and these rolls of 4-foot tall welded wire fence. I think the first impulse for a lot of us is to let nature take its course. And I think what we slowly begin to realize is that this isn't nature. Or maybe I should say it in a different way. This is nature, but this is nature plus human impacts. And the human impacts aren't always right here. It's not that there's a bulldozer going through these woods, but there's all these impacts seeping in from the borders into this nature preserve, whether it's overabundant deer, which are, pretty much across good portions of our continent, or invasive species, or what have you. So when we say let nature take its course, it's not entirely fair. So if we have nature sort of minus human beings right now, I think what we want to aim for is nature plus human beings in order to balance it out. We can't just take ourselves out of the picture and be like, oh, we caused all that trouble, well, we're just leaving now. And so this is an exercise in what can we do in a positive way relative to places like this. And one of the things that I found in restoration is that it's really a long-term process where, like, every year it's like you're peeling an onion and you're getting to the core. So the first year you might just observe. The next year you might put some fences up or take away some of the bigger invasive plants. But then the next year you're looking at resprouting invasive plants or fixing your fences, but you're also starting to see things respawn. Maybe you took out a non-native shrubby thicket and you're starting to see seedlings in there. And so I think we have this natural impulse to kind of want to get everything done fast and cross it off the list, but one of the cool things about working on a project like this is it's like you're dancing with a partner, and you can't just rush it and have it all happen at once. You need to give the cycle of the seasons its time for some of the natural life and repair to happen, and then come back and say, what is my role now? And then come back the next year and say, what is my role now? So this is a project that we put a lot of work into, and we could close the book now and say, this is a really awesome class, such a good crew of people. They're going to go on and do other really good projects in the Sourlands. Or we could say that this continues to be our teacher probably for many years to come as we see it evolve in response to what we've done here.
Hi, I'm David Voorhees, and I have been pretty much involved with this project since its inception, and coming out here trying to find the markers. I remember spending a lot of quality time with Chris Berry, and we did these forest secchi characterizations of different areas from like 8 different markers, fanning out in 4 directions and measuring the density of invasive plants. We marked all the ash trees in here, which unfortunately are pretty much all on their way out. But every time I've come out here, whether it's with Jared or any of the group, it's always been a tremendous learning experience and an ability to identify new plants and what can be done with them, what doesn't belong, and the impact of what can happen when we take care or don't take care of a vast region, this 1 acre that we've been restoring now for several years. So I'm always glad to be a part of the Sourland Conservancy, and certainly glad to be here today.
Yeah, and I was afraid nobody would show up either, so thanks so much everybody for coming out. Wasn't looking very daunting.
No, that's a very good.
I worked at Beach Farms Monday, and the new director.